We shall not pretend to any understanding of the bond between dragon and a dragon rider. Wiser heads have pondered that mystery for centuries. We do know, however, that dragons are not horses to be ridden by any man who throws a saddle on their back.
Now that's actually a quote from Archmaester Gildain from Fire and Blood Part 1, and he's referring in a chapter known as The Dying of the Dragons, which happens towards the end of A Dance of Dragons, and that's what this new Game of Thrones prequel series is going to be about. In this video in particular, I want to mention several different things that you all should know when heading into this new series, as well as a quick Prince Daemon breakdown, as I believe he will be the next casting member that will be announced for House of the Dragon. Also, real quick, before we jump into it, do me a massive favor and slap a like on this video. The like goal is going to be 420. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and this is the most important part. Make sure you have your notifications turned on as well as being subscribed, so that way you'll get an alert every single time I drop a Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, or a Song of Ice and Fire video throughout this
long night.
Now, relating back to that quote that I mentioned at the very beginning of this video, the taming of dragons, or how one bonds with the dragon enough to ride it, is left up to a bit of a mystery. And according to a lot of the information that we're given in A Song of Ice and Fire, mainly in Fire and Blood, throughout the main series, A Song of Ice and Fire, and then what we're told by George R. R. Martin himself in interviews, is that the Targaryens possess blood magic, which obviously gives them abilities to bond with dragons, as no other house, and really no other race other than Valyrians, are able to bond with dragons. Now, there may have been a pre-existing race, as obviously the Valyrians, the way that they tame the dragons, or what it's told, is they basically stumble upon dragon eggs one day in something called the 14 Flames, which is before Valyria is established as like this massive empire that's supposed to echo ancient Rome. But before that happens, the dragons, or the Valyrians, are sheep herders, and they stumble upon these dragon eggs, and a lot of the maesters think that they took wyvern stock and something known as fireworms, which are basically these massive creatures who can tunnel through rock and breathe flames, and then wyverns are obviously dragons who can fly, but they can't breathe flame. But the maesters think that they manipulated those two creatures and then bonded with their own DNA to form, Valyrians that can control dragons. Now, we're given several different things that could somewhat control dragons, although we haven't actually seen it happen yet in the main series, and that's using horns. Something known as Dragon Binder can be blown, and although it will turn the user into stone, apparently the original owner of the horn itself will be able to control a dragon. So there's a plot in House Greyjoy with Victarion and his brother Euron where they plan on stealing a dragon from Daenerys. One of them plans on betting Daenerys, but we'll see how that goes when Winds of Winter finally drops. Now, real quick on a side note, I want to mention that there is something known as the Horn of Joramun, or the Horn of Winter, which is a magical horn that can bring down the wall, but I don't know if Dragon Binder is going to be brought up in this main series. In this prequel series to the main series Game of Thrones being adapted to television. But I do know that Ryan Condal, one of the showrunners for this series, the guy who's really spearheading all the early interviews and shit. Speaking of which, if he watches my videos, which I doubt he does, I would love to interview him for this podcast. Can you guys imagine if I was able to interview Ryan Condal? You know how many fucking questions I would ask this dude? I've got a list of like 20 prepared. All of them that would be spoiler free, but some real, digging in their information. But getting back on track here, Ryan Condal is a massive fan of props. He actually has a podcast where he talks about a lot of the collectibles that he's collected throughout his career, as well as his co-hosts. They are massive fans and they love different movie props. So that makes me think that there's a possibility that since we sort of saw what was supposed to be Jormun's horn when Sam discovered the dragon glass at the Fist of the First Men, but it was never really brought up by Dan and Dave. That was yet another plot that they felt if they did expand on, it would make the series go a lot longer than the 8 seasons they planned for after, changing, whatever. That's besides the point. Ryan Condal's a massive fan, and something like using dragon binders, although it's not brought up in the story of A Dance with Dragons, which pretty much Fire and Blood reads like a history book. So a lot of the events Ryan Condal gets to expand upon, which with Miguel Sapochnik and of course George R. R. Martin. He's going to be an executive producer, and although he's going to focus on finishing Winds of Winter, I'm pretty sure Condal will be like sitting on his lap and listening for any sort of input he wants to give on this new show. But it would be interesting to see if Dragon Binder is sort of brought in this new series, since it does exist, several hundred years before the main series. Then it would be possible to bring in certain ancient magical artifacts such as Dragon Binder, or maybe even even if it isn't actually used in a prop, it could sort of be used in passing, as mentioning like during something that's known as the sowing of the dragon seeds, or basically there's a time in the Dance of the Dragons where Rhaenyra's camp decides that since they are getting low on dragon riders, they want to call all the available dragon seeds on Dragonstone to come and try to mount the dragon to help them out in the wars to come. There are several that are successful. A few of them even turn tail and join the Greens in the wars. But during this time frame in the show, in the, if I had to guess, maybe third or fourth season, we won't really know until the first season airs, and then we can judge from the pacing when the sowing or the culling of the dragon seeds is going to actually happen. But when that happens, it could be mentioned by Mushroom, and he could say some shit like, oh, you know, there's some ancient horn dragonbinder. I don't know why I'm giving him the typical leprechaun accent, but it would be interesting to just hear about it, and maybe we get to see it mentioned. I don't know if it would actually be used. I don't think it would be proper to add something like that into the storyline. You all let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Now, another way that the Targaryens of old used to control their dragons, which will likely be expanded upon in this new series, House of the Dragon, and I sort of kind of mentioned it, is a combination of blood magic / warging. In the books, dragons are linked to Targaryens in more ways than just one. Like, obviously, Daenerys has this connection with her 3 dragons, Viserion, Rhaegal, and Drogon, but her ancestors had bonds that go back even further. Now, Daenerys is the last of her kind in the main series, but in this version of the story, there are many Targaryens around, so their traditions, from what Aegon the Conqueror established on Dragonstone, and then when he conquered Westeros, are passed down in their line. So they still know some of the secrets of the ancient Valyrians and how they tame their dragons. In the books, they used whips and many different things, but I think the link will be mainly explored in this series. The link that they'll use to explain the connection between Targaryens and dragons will be dragon dreams. The Valyrian version of what House Stark can do, and that's warging. House Stark can warg into their direwolves, and Bran can warg into anything. Bran can warg into a human, and eventually I think in Winds of Winter, or maybe in A Dream of Spring, he will warg into one of Daenerys' dragons. Targaryens have their blood magic version of warging, and that's having dragon dreams and being able to actually control their dragons. Now, it's mentioned that dragons have the intelligence of equal to humans, or sometimes even greater than humans. For those who are uninitiated, dragon dreams, or Targaryen warging, is basically those with the blood of the dragon are known to have premonition-like dreams, or an ability. They aren't ordinary dreams. They often involve dragons, but not always. Dragon dreams appear to have haunted those with the blood of the dragon throughout the generations, some more than others. Members of House Targaryen and House Blackfyre have had these dreams. House Blackfyre is an offshoot of House Targaryen. But there are many other Valyrians, I'm sure, that have had these dragon dreams, as their connection to dragons goes back many, many thousands of years. A lot of people tend to think that ancient dragon lords actually came over to Westeros during the time way before Aegon ever conquered. Now, this is also something that Ryan Condal will likely explore in his series, maybe in some of the later seasons, but something that supports that theory of Valyrians coming over to Westeros prior to Aegon. Obviously, Dragonstone was established, but in Dragonstone, there's actually something known as Blackstone, and the origins of this have been used in construction of several sites throughout many of the known world. But the origins of it are a bit of a mystery. According to the Ironborn, their sea stone chair was found on the shore of Old Wick and had been carved from a block of oily black stone. They don't know who created it. Also, the Isle of Toads, one of the Basilisk Isles, contains Toadstone, which is a large statue of a toad made of greasy black stone. And then we have over there, not necessarily near there, but over in that part of the world that's got many mysterious factors that go with it in Yin. There's this ancient ruined city called Solthrios, and it's made out of massive blocks of oily stone. Long story short, this oily black stone repeats itself throughout Song of Ice and Fire. And I think that since it exists all throughout the world, mainly around the surrounding areas of Valyria, but then also exists outside of Dragonstone, it sort of proves that Valyrians had been to Westeros before, especially since Dragonstone was noted as being the Valyrians' furthest outpost. Like, they had traded with the citizens of Westeros, but it wasn't really known that they had been there, or the history of the Valyrians coming into Westeros before Aegon the Conqueror had conquered Westeros is a bit unknown. I think it will be interesting to see if this is something that Ryan Condal decides to explore in this House of the Dragon series. But after that side tangent, oh man, what was that, like a minute and a half rant? I forgot what the fuck the whole point. Oh yeah, dragon dreams. Well, one of the other ways I hope House the Dragon explores further into the Targaryen blood magic, their warging, their ability to control dragons, dragons, or at least tame them. You know, a dragon is not a slave. But their ability to bond with them, I think, is further explored in this series, and hopefully will do so with dragon dreams. Briefly, if you aren't aware what dragon dreams are, like I just mentioned, it's their version of wolf dreams, like House Stark, you know, with them having a long line of having the ability to be green seers, or wargs rather. You know, green seer is just a super high powered version of a warg. Basically, a warg can only warg into a dog or a wolf, and a green seer can warg into all animals. So like Bran can warg into humans, and like I mentioned, maybe even a dragon. But some of the dragon dreams that Daenerys receives happens before a lot of the crazy events throughout her journey. Like one of them being that she gets several different dreams that envision different colors of dragons. Like for instance, she has a dream of a black dragon prior to her wedding day to Khal Drogo, and it's quoted, "Viserys was hurting her. She was naked, clumsy, with fear. She ran from him, but her body seemed thick and ungainly. He struck her again. She stumbled and fell. He struck her again. She stumbled and fell.
You woke the dragon,
he screamed as he kicked her.
You woke the dragon. You woke the dragon.
Her thighs were slick with blood. She closed her eyes and whimpered. As if in answer, there was a hideous ripping sound and the crackling of some great fire. When she looked again, Viserys was gone. Great columns of flame rose all around, and in the midst of them was the dragon. It turned its great head slowly. When its molten eyes found hers, she woke, shaking and covered with a fine sweat." So basically, this dream is telling her that all the shit that she's going through, all the shit she has to put up with her abusive brother Viserys, is going to be sort of worth it, because she's going to be gifted with the power of dragon. And not necessarily that some of the crazy shit that she's going through is worth it, because obviously no one should have to suffer that. But her journey in the end will amount to something. It will just not be endless suffering for no reason. There's sort of a light at the end of the tunnel. And Daenerys is getting these dreams at a time where she's the weakest. It's at the beginning of her journey, and this is the time where she's wedding Khal Drogo. She's basically being sold to this dude who's gonna start raping her, and she has no idea if she's going to really survive the future. She has no idea what the fuck is about to happen. So the fact that these dragon dreams start coming to her at this time lets you know that dragon dreams have a history of coming to Targaryens in a time of need. For instance, we have Dany's the Dreamer, who actually warned the Targaryens to get away from Valyria before the doom of Valyria, and they did so by going to Dragonstone. And then some time after that, this is when Aegon decides to conquer Westeros. So Targaryens, throughout the history of the Song of Ice and Fire, are given these dragon dreams that not only increase their bond with their dragons, but they're also foretold of events that are going to come. Now, my point in all this is that I'm hoping Rhaenyra at some point in this story gets a dragon dream, or maybe another character who is going to be this show's version of Daenerys. Now, a couple other points I want to make before we get to the Prince Daemon breakdown, and I'm gonna sort of spend not as much time as I made on the first one, because I feel like that first point is super important. We need to see a lot of House Targaryen and a lot of their magic further explained. And also, I'm not going to spend any time really talking about it, but do you all think, let me know down below in the comment section of course, but do you think that the Night King and the White Walkers will be a plot? Now, obviously, they don't play a role in the Dance of the Dragons. In all of the history that we've been given about the Dance of the Dragons, the White Walkers aren't really mentioned. Although, House Stark will play a role, and the North will play a role. Now, obviously, the White Walkers existed back then, so I am curious to see which way this show will go in that direction. Will they sort of stray away from it and start mentioning it towards the end of the series? You all let me know what you think down below in the comment section. But some of the other things we have to look forward to, of course, are wars and battles. And that is Miguel Sapochnik. Dance of Dragons literally doesn't mean that the dragons are gonna, hop and go down to the ball and hop in a car and drive really far and maybe get a few drinks or something. That's not what it means. It means literally dragons are dancing in the sky, tearing each other apart, shredding each other with tooth and claw, and there's going to be a lot of fucking dead Targaryens and dragons at the end of the series. So one of the major things we have to look forward to, with Miguel Sapochnik being a showrunner and actually directing a few of the episodes in the first season, it is all-out war. I don't really know how to explain it. We thought they did an amazing job in this first series, but that brings me to the next point, with everything having a higher budget from the beginning with this new House of the Dragon, this Game of Thrones prequel series, and everything being filmed at the Warner Brothers studio in Leavesden. That means that their battles are going to be all fucking out. They're going to have the ability to do it and do it relatively quickly. Now, obviously, they're going to film certain things on location, but for the main part, all of the shit that involves explosives and flying on dragons, and the dragons ripping each other's wings off and splitting each other down the belly, and all of this being done mid-flight, well, that needs CGI all around. That's going to be done at this Leavesden studio, and it's also really easy since they're going to be sort of in a prime location. They'll be able to get hundreds, if not thousands of extras on call a lot easier. All of these things I think are going to speed up the production, but also give us a higher quality show. And I think Wars and Battles, since it's Miguel's specialty, is something that we should all be looking forward to. Now, one of the last things that I think I'll mention for this video at least, now, I've done several videos breaking down House of the Dragon. I've even done like a 45-minute video within the last month breaking down what will happen in the first season, but one of the major things I enjoyed the most about the first series, Game of Thrones, was the familial drama. Now that is on an 11 in this series, to put it lightly. The backstabbing, the betrayal, the long drawn-out dialogues, the amazing actors who, as long as they can act, the writing will be there. It's going to be insane. Speaking of writing, they've just hired another writer, and that means 6 total. So I think that since we have that many different people all putting in information and putting in their ideas, the final product should be something amazing, as George and Ryan Condal will have the final say-so. And Ryan actually mentions in one of his more recent interviews that he's doing a lot of the casting himself. Since he has experience casting shows before, I'm pretty sure that he will be putting a lot of thought into casting these characters. And we have to remember, they're a lot further along in the casting than we think they are, since they've only announced Paddy Considine. A lot of people think that that's the only person they cast. Well, that's not the case. Remember, I've reported myself back in, I think I made the video in August, and I also was sent the information in July. So I may have briefly mentioned it in one of those videos, but back in August I mentioned how they're going to start filming at the end of this year. I think it'll be late December. I think by then we will definitely have at least 5 members of the main cast announced. But with that information being somewhat confirmed by another online website, I think it's safe to say that COVID hasn't really slowed the production down. And just sort of relating back to what I was mentioning about the last thing that we have to look forward to in this show, the familial drama. The relationship in particular, I'm going to do the character breakdown of Prince Daemon, but the relationship in particular between Alicent and her father, Sir Otto Hightower, is a dynamic that I can't wait to see personally explored on screen. It will very much echo Cersei and her father, Tywin Lannister, but the difference here is that there's a lot more mystery with Alicent and Sir Otto. We may find out that Alicent herself could be more cunning, manipulative, and cutthroat, as Alicent's hands directly destroy all of House Targaryen in their power. Well, Cersei, with the help of others, and you can debate me back and forth in the comment section, but Cersei, her actions alone aren't at fault for starting the War of the Five Kings. You obviously have Peter Baelish manipulating Lysa Arryn into killing her husband Jon Arryn. That's one of the events that led to the War of the Five Kings. Then you have Joffrey beheading Ned Stark. Speaking of Ned Stark, you have Ned himself trying to call out Cersei and that all of her children are bastards. There were many events that led to the War of the Five Kings, which is the events that tell this whole story and all of its tragedy. With the Dance of Dragons, what Alicent does when she declares her son Aegon II the king of all the realms, she knows damn motherfucking well that Rhaenyra, being the Princess of Dragonstone, was next in line for the Iron Throne. So when her father, Viserys I, dies, Alicent's actions pretty much bring down House Targaryen. Now, obviously, there's a few civil wars, but the events of the Dance of Dragons are what destroys the dragons themselves, and that's the root of pretty much all of House Targaryen's power, and they never fully recover from that. So Alicent is, in my opinion, going to be an interesting character to see portrayed on screen, as I'm sure she will be likable, but she will also be like Cersei, and in the end, I'm pretty sure we may all end up hating her character, while at the same time feeling somewhat sorry and remorseful for her. Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, George R. Martin in general, is an amazing fucking writer. Now on to the meat and the potatoes, or the shaft and the balls of this video, my brief Prince Daemon Targaryen character breakdown. Now, I've actually done several videos on where I list several actors who I think will play Prince Daemon, and in those videos, in the process of making those videos, I go about explaining who Daemon Targaryen is on a deeper level. Everyone watching this video needs to understand that Prince Daemon Targaryen is pretty much, all right, I don't know why I do that. I get sucked into my mobster voice. But Prince Daemon is basically going to be like an unfiltered, a raw, more uncut version of Jaime. The main reason why I say this is because Prince Daemon is going to be around the same age as Jaime, but he's going to be a lot more than just a knight for the King's Guard who's fucking his twin sister. Prince Daemon instead likes to fuck his niece and his brother's wife and all the higher-ups in King's Landing. Now, this dude actually tries to marry Rhaenyra on multiple occasions. He ends up doing so after both of their being, of course, Prince Daemon and Princess of Dragonstone Rhaenyra. Their husband and wife at the time die, and Daemon ends up sneaking off with his niece and goes and marries her. Now, this adds a bit of more strain onto the relationship between Viserys and Daemon, because multiple times throughout Viserys and Daemon's life, Daemon does certain things that is basically like a giant fuck you to his brother Viserys, but ultimately Viserys, being his older brother, he sort of just lets him get away with it. King Viserys is one of those dudes who's relatively laid back, and the main reason being is when he was handed the Iron Throne itself, it was handed to him from King Jaehaerys the Conciliator, who, because he was called the Conciliator, basically made sure everything was taken care of. Now, he ruled for something like 55 fucking years, and during this time period, Westeros had never seen any other form greater of prosperity throughout all of the 7 kingdoms. Mainly because King Jaehaerys was all about getting shit done, making sure that everyone put their part in, but then also being able to take care of business. Now, a lot of people say that they want to see King Jaehaerys in this new series because he was a bit of a badass with the sword. There's one scene in particular, no spoilers from Fire and Blood, that he whoops a bunch of people's ass. It's pretty badass. But getting back on track here, Prince Daemon and his relationship with King Viserys is going to be something that will likely be explored on this new series, and they may even have Prince Daemon being the main focus of the first episode before they bring in other characters. Like maybe in the very first episode, the first character that we meet will be Prince Daemon, because for a long time he will be the star of this series. He doesn't really die until the end of it, and I'm pretty sure with the events that surround his death, it's known as the Battle Above God's Eye, and he takes out his nephew Aemon One Eye, but dies in the process, or at least it's said he dies. A lot of people think that he may have survived that and went and lived off with Nettles in the woods. There was a clan known as the Clan of Burned Men. It was a mountain clan, and they end up worshipping a witch, and a lot of people think that that may have been Nettles and Daemon. But besides the point, I'm pretty sure the first episode of the first season of this will likely focus heavily on Daemon, because he is going to be the star of this series. Now, throughout his many adventures throughout the 7 kingdoms and really all of Planetos, there's no official name for the planet that Westeros is on, but it's been dubbed by the fandom as Planetos. We assume it's a sphere. And anyway, throughout all of Prince Daemon's journeys, he ends up creating many enemies as well as many friends. And one of the things we'll see is that him and another major character, actually 2 major characters, one of them being Sir Otto Hightower and Criston Cole, it's going to be interesting from the beginning, because the fact that Sir Otto Hightower goes out of his way multiple times just to fuck over Prince Daemon, and same with Prince Daemon doing certain things to fuck over Criston Cole and Sir Otto Hightower as well. The amount of power and influence they have over Queen Alicent and then Princess Rhaenyra before she dubs herself queen on Dragonstone. Obviously, she's the rightful ruler in my opinion. We'll see in this series how many times that flips back and forth when I'm covering it. But one of the things that happens early on in between Criston Cole, Daemon, and Sir Otto Hightower, I think will sort of influence how they talk in the ear of Queen Alicent and then Princess Rhaenyra respectively. Mainly because this will be their chance, the chance they've been waiting for throughout the entirety of knowing all of them as enemies. Mainly Criston Cole and Sir Otto Hightower work together on the side of the Greens, but they both hate Prince Daemon for separate reasons. Mainly Prince Daemon ends up taking Alicent's virginity, according to Mushroom. It wouldn't be that hard to believe the fact that how a lot of these characters and some of the events that happen, you can see that a lot of it's personal. But that's another thing that I can't wait to see with Prince Daemon, is the fact that he's made so many enemies, and and early on we'll get to see that he's made enemies all the way up to, you know, Hand of the King for King Viserys' brother. Sir Otto Hightower is King Viserys' Hand of the King, and Prince Daemon, being King Viserys' brother, has made enemies with the king's right hand. It's an insane dynamic. I can't fucking wait to see it on screen. Whichever actor they cast as Prince Daemon, a lot of us think it will be Travis Fimmel. I've had rumors of that all the way back in July. I was sent information through the DMs. Speaking of which, make sure you go follow me at Sir_Hunt. But the actor who plays Prince Daemon has to be incredibly dynamic and must be able to show range. I would not be surprised if they brought in an A-list actor to play the role of Prince Daemon, just for the fact that he will have so many scenes early on and so be like Jon Snow / Jaime / Robb Stark / Euron. Since we're gonna have someone that dynamic, we need an incredible top-tier actor to play. I would be pretty shocked if it wasn't someone A-list with similar acting chops to Travis Fimmel to play that role. I mean, if they did pick someone unknown, I'm pretty sure they would have incredible stage presence and will definitely be able to deliver those lines and play in those fighting scenes. And also, another reason why I say A-list, and this will be my last point before I get the fuck out of here, I think I've done a pretty good job of breaking Prince Daemon, oh man, I can't even speak. Yeah, I really need to get out of here. I think I've done a pretty good job of breaking down Prince Daemon's character so far in all of the many videos that I've made this year covering House of the Dragon and will continue to make. But the last point that I want to make of why I think they should make the actor A-list is that Prince Daemon will have to ride a dragon, known as the Bloodworm. The dragon, albeit like all other dragons during this time frame, are going to be similar to the size of Daenerys' dragons in the later seasons. Debate me down below, you fucks. I don't give a shit. The size of the dragons are not as important as they are in the books. Martin can describe a dragon the size of the World Trade Center. On the TV show, that's impossible to do. They will all be about the same size. It's easy to have dragons that all look similar but are different colors because so many Targaryens will be riding dragons during this time frame. But the reason why I say the actor should be A-list is because they will have to ride dragons, which means they will have to be used to dealing with high budget prop sets in movies. And Fimmel has a relationship with HBO, has worked with Raised by Dragons, and no, he does not ride, Raised by Wolves with HBO, and no, he doesn't ride dragons in that fucking show, but he is used to working with big budget shows and can sort of slide right into the role. At this point, if Travis doesn't get cast in the role, if not as Prince Daemon, but somewhere in the series, well then Ryan Condal hasn't been paying attention to the internet. Well, alright, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. This video is almost 30 minutes long and, well, you know, I'm pretty sure most of you have stopped watching at this point. But I want to thank you all of you who are still watching, so much for watching. If you could please do me a massive favor, as it really helps my channel out. YouTube's algorithm has done some things, whereas my videos don't get promoted as often as they used to, so one of the things that you could do to help me out is by slapping a like on this video, making sure you're subscribed, and then this is the most important part. If you've already slapped a like and you're already subscribed, go ahead and go all the way, babe, and turn your notifications on, so that way you'll get an alert every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night, or the wait for more content from Game of Thrones, HBO, George R. Martin, something. Until then, I'll be dropping videos, and that's known as the long night. Also, make sure to subscribe. Wait, I already said that. Super special shout out to all the people you see listed right here. They are all members of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntReviews. Super special shout out again to every single person watching this video. And also, I recently started doing memberships on this channel, where there are usually several ads that play during my videos, as that's how we get paid here. That's like part of the monetization. But one of the ways you can get around that is by paying $1.99, and that way you can watch all of my videos free, ad-free, so that way, you know, I'll still get a bit of kickback for making this content, but also you won't be annoyed by having an ad pop up every so often. It'll probably make you enjoy my videos more, which may lead you over to my Patreon, where I'll eventually be doing live streams. Thanks again for watching. My name is Mark, and this has been Surrounds Reviews. All of that extra banter is usually left out on the editing room floor, but let me know if you all thought it was funny, and I'll start leaving more of that shit in. I used to leave a lot of it in my old videos 5 years ago.